Welcome to Shameless Plug, a podcast where we talk about music, media, life, and all of its intersections. I am your host, Xavier Madison. Last week, we were getting ready to go back to school. I hope that everyone applied the tips that I gave out because those are fucking gems. This week, we're back at school, and I can feel my brain growing. I can feel myself getting smarter and simultaneously dumber at the same time. Last week was a very eventful one, if you were into hip-hop music at least, because we had about 6 major releases, which is actually crazy when you consider just how high-profile the artists who were releasing them were. So we got, I think, A$AP Mob, Action Bronson, Brockhampton, Daniel Caesar, Lil Uzi Vert, and this one's low-key, but, you know, he's still recognized, Buddy, who released an EP, but I'm counting that for the sake of argument because fuck you. And having days like, Thursday or Friday, which is usually the day music gets released, having days like those filled with a bunch of albums is nothing we're not used to in the year 2017. In fact, we've had this, a few times before, even in 2015 and 2016. But if you paid attention in the last couple of years, the music market is changing. And you've probably noticed an increase in the number of albums being released professionally. And there has been a clear increase. I mean, you can just look at around 275 albums that have been put out in 2017. And keep in mind that at the time of recording, we are only 9 months into the year. And when you compare that to the 50 albums that were released professionally in 2007, only 10 years ago, and you can tell that the album format is not dying or going anywhere, despite what many people may say or think. And when I say professionally, I do mean released on a label. Even if it isn't major, it's still considered professional. So as long as it wasn't self-released and was backed by some form of a label, it is considered professional. And really, if it's on a streaming platform. But yes, the album format is clearly not going anywhere anytime soon. In fact, it's on the rise. What many people won't tell you is that it is actually the mixtape that is dying. And there are a number of reasons why the mixtape format is dying and being replaced with professional albums. So artists are now opting out of that rookie stage and getting straight to the money. And, I, for one, am glad to see artists being compensated for their work, but there are a few problems with the current system. One of the biggest ones being that with all the releases on Apple Music, Spotify, even Napster, these are all the paid subscriptions, there's really a lot of music flooding the market. With new artists being available on the same platforms as megastars like Drake, Beyonce, and Kanye West, then everybody is getting a piece of the pie. And, albeit the slices are not divided equally, but it's pie. And who doesn't love that? And we also have to take into account the current culture that we're living in regards to music specifically. Big magazines like Rolling Stones or The Source are past their prime and are being replaced by blogs and websites for the newer generation at least. And these small websites shine brighter spotlights on smaller artists, naturally. And as more blogs discover an artist and try to get on him to seem ahead of the curve, while fans do the same thing, it usually results in a nationwide audience, but it really is just a small fan base for an artist that, might have just come out even a week ago. In the past, artists would have a regional fan base for most, if not all, of the beginning of their career. It was very hard to break that barrier at first, but with the internet, a kid from Washington State can bump a mixtape from a New Orleans rapper or stream it at least, and the rapper's going to be making money or compensated for it. And breaking that regional barrier is easier now than ever, but the trial of breaking that barrier used to be crucial to the success of an artist, and it really forced them to hone their craft so they could eventually reach that wider audience. And, it is essential that artists evolve, especially early on in their careers, because that's where there's the most room for improvement, and improvement is what used to earn them more exposure. So many artists have mixtapes from before they blew up that most people don't even know about, and for good reason. The tapes aren't good. They were forced to get better, and it paid off. And the incentive for switching styles and evolving just isn't as large as it used to be. I mean, you can just ask the average listener, and I really do mean listener, not hip hop fan, if they heard Infinite by Eminem or Minor of the Year by Kendrick Lamar. And the answer to these questions will usually be no, because they weren't really being checked for at that stage in their career. Now, I know this may sound like an exaggeration with everything I'm saying. New artists aren't just rolling in money because of streaming. And I'm also not saying that every rapper on SoundCloud is getting exposure from blogs and websites, but I am saying that now it is easier than ever to get that exposure. I mean, you have to have some talent in the first place to set yourself apart and to even, get there. But there really is no disputing the fact that with the amount of platforms out for your own music and for blogs and for websites, and just with how we really do live half of our lives on the internet now, it really is easier to get your music out there and exposed if you have some discernible talent. Now, there is good news and bad news to this new way of making music. The good news is that artists can generate revenue easier. It's great for up-and-coming artists because, it gives them money they can use to fund their careers. And music can serve as a little side hustle now. But the bad news is that it really does oversaturate the market, and it gives subpar artists false projections of their careers. And I'm aware that whether an artist is subpar or not is up for interpretation of the listener, but there are truly some subpar artists out there and some subpar music being released now, and it gets treated as if it's a major release, which naturally leads me into some of the albums that we got last week. So in the ever blurring realm of hip hop and R&B, we got ASAP Mob, Lil Uzi Vert, Action Bronson, Brockhampton, Daniel Caesar, and even Buddy. And I just want to say that I have listened to all of these albums, but I've only listened to ASAP Mob and Brockhampton and Daniel Caesar the most, and those are the ones I have the most to say about. I did listen to Action Bronson once, and it just seemed like a run-of-the-mill Action Bronson tape to me. I did enjoy it because I think he's, fucking hilarious. But it just was, an Action Bronson tape. And Lil Uzi Vert, let's see. Oh, yeah, and XXXTentacion, who I have been leaving out this whole time. That's not to say that his tape wasn't good, because it honestly was better than some of the people who he was competing with last week. But yeah, let's just get into it. I'm gonna try at least to keep it brief with all of these albums. And the first one I want to start off with is Cozy Tapes 2 by ASAP Mob. These aren't really formal reviews. This is just a rundown of the music and my impression of it. I really got the impression with Cozy Tapes 2 that ASAP Mob is not a strong collective. They don't really have that much chemistry altogether. And I did have a false sense of hope from Cozy Tapes 1, which was by no means a masterpiece, but was at least entertaining. And it didn't put me to sleep throughout the whole listen. I did enjoy a lot of the songs on there. Lamborghini High. Let's see what else is there. Crazy Brazy, Way High. Even Nasty's World. I kind of enjoyed that. Put That on My Set, Runner, London Town, and Telephone Calls. It seemed more structured than Cozy Tapes 2, and there was just more rapping, less ad-libs. And that was probably my biggest problem with Cozy Tapes 2, was just the influence that Playboi Carti has clearly had over the ASAP Mob. And I kind of get why Playboi Carti is popular now, even if I might not be the biggest fan of him. I do enjoy songs, but it was not enjoyable seeing just how much he infiltrated that group and really took over with his whole style being on the album. And I really, really hated Jaden Smith on the hook on one song. I forgot what it was called. I think it's like Perrier. Yeah, Perrier with Jaden Smith. They kind of lowered his voice on that to make it sound like throwed, like they did on Live Love ASAP, and it just doesn't work with Jaden Smith's voice at all. There were a few songs that I did enjoy on there. I did like Walk on Water. I did like Bahamas, and I did like Frat Rules, and I kind of do like Raf. I think in the context of the album, I don't like it that much, but as a single, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot, and I think on the album version, they included 2 verses by Frank Ocean, whereas the single only had 1 version. But with that being said, the best songs on Cozy Tapes 2 still don't reach the highs of Cozy Tapes 1, and I walk away with it kind of doubtful about A$AP Mob's future, especially A$AP Rocky, who's clearly talented but was not bringing his best foot forward on this tape. So, I mean, if I had to, I would give it about 5 plugs. And I'm sticking with plugs. Fuck what you thought. That's our rating system. There's not much I want to say about Lil Uzi Vert Love Is Rage 2 besides the fact that I thought it was all over the place. I thought it sounded very rushed, like it was recorded in about a month. I didn't think it came close to Love Is Rage 1, and I'm very shocked that I think the song Neon Guts got like best new music on Pitchfork. I mean, there were some songs that I kind of enjoyed. I liked 444 plus 222, and I did enjoy Neon Guts. I just don't think it's as great as other platforms may say it is, and that is included with X and Dark Queen, and of course EXO Tour Life, which was, I guess, Song of the Summer by MTV standards. But yeah, overall, I was very disappointed with Love Is Rage 2, especially considering that it was a sequel to my favorite project by Lil Uzi Vert, and I always did give him more credit than I did give his contemporaries, like Lil Yachty and all those other colorful dread-headed rappers, because I thought that Lil Uzi Vert did have some artistic merit, especially when you consider the urgency and the diversity that he showed on Love Is Rage 1. And unfortunately, none of that is here on Love Is Rage 2. He did find his footing, I guess you could say, but that doesn't dispute the fact that I don't like the direction that he was going in with this. So I'm left to give it about the same, about 5 plugs, maybe 5.5. But an album that I did enjoy greatly was Freudian by Daniel Caesar. This isn't his first project, but I think it is considered his debut album. He did have Pilgrim's Paradise and Praise Break before this, but Freudian, I think, is what everyone is saying is his debut album. I did enjoy almost every song on here. The opener was Get You, which is obviously the song that skyrocketed Daniel Caesar into fame. He was acclaimed during Praise Break, which many people were exposed to him through, and basically for the reason that he was on the rise during the infamous 4-year Frank Ocean drought, in which everyone was looking for artists that could satisfy that craving, and Daniel Caesar happened to be one of them. And with such a strong opener with Get You, the album does not disappoint from there on out. He has some great collaborations with Her. That's how I'm going to say it. It really is Her, but I'm going to say Her. And then Kelly Uchis, however you pronounce that. And Sid and someone else. Hold on. Oh yeah, Charlotte Day Wilson, who unfortunately I am not too caught up on, but I did enjoy her feature on the Bad Bad Not Good album that came out last year, which, off topic, was a great album. But back to Freudian, Daniel Caesar did mesh or blend well with all of his features on here, and his hypnotic voice, coupled with his intimate and, at times sexy set of lyrics. It really is a perfect setup for, a proper R&B album in the modern era. I think that's part of the reason why Division blew up, and I'm very excited to see what they do next. But when you especially consider the recent rise of 90s R&B and how everyone is putting on those throwbacks, it really makes sense why someone like Daniel Caesar is doing so well in this contemporary landscape. So I'm very excited to see what he does from here on out. He has a very interesting story. He's an independent artist, and if you ever get the chance, you should check out his other projects. Freudian, I would probably give 8.5 plugs. And the only thing stopping me from giving it a full-on 10 out of 10, honestly, is just how I don't think it is as risky as his other albums were. And I do think that it did feel a little, drawn out at times. But there were some experimental parts of the album that I really did enjoy, such as the song New Roses and the title track and closer, Freudian, which structurally is very inspired by Futura Free by Frank Ocean. So if you listen to the song, you know what I'm talking about. But anyway, yeah, Freudian gets an 8.5. And then finally, the album that I've probably listened to the most out of all the ones that have been released, Saturation 2 by Brockhampton, who I already shouted out on, I think, the second episode of this podcast. The album Saturation 2 is the second installment of a trilogy that is going to be finished, they said, before the end of the year, so be on the lookout for Saturation 3. But as I was saying, I do think Saturation 2 is better than its predecessor. I really enjoy just the structural diversity of the songs. It really kept me on my toes, and production-wise, there were a lot of unique beats and rhythm changes on the songs. Really, my only problem with it, or my only problem with Brockhampton, I guess, as a whole, is Amir Van. He is a good rapper, but I think he just doesn't change up his style enough or his message, and he just seems to be very repetitive in the way he delivers. So I did, kind of knock that against them, but he did show more diversity here, especially on the song Queer. What else? Oh yeah, and I was very happy to see Summer by Bareface on the album. I was waiting for that song to come out for a long time. I know everyone was when they first saw the music video for Empty by Kevin Abstract. But let's see, I really enjoyed Swamp, Tokyo, Gummy, of course, Queer. Like I said, really almost every song. Junkie and Sweet and Gamba. And yeah, I mean, it just did not disappoint. I'm really excited to see what they do on Saturation 3. And even though it is a trilogy and there are, similarities between the first two projects, and they did come out so close within one another, I was really impressed by how much growth I think they actually did show between 1 and 2, especially Joba, I think. Yeah, Joba, who is becoming one of my, I guess, more favorite members of the collective Brockhampton. I would probably end up giving, I will give Saturation 2 a 7.5, 7.5. And yeah, I mean, I was really impressed with what they did. And it just goes to show that just because you're an established act like A$AP Mob, or I guess Lil Uzi Vert is kind of established now, it doesn't mean that you're always guaranteed for success in a good album. And I'm actually very disappointed in what I think was Lil Uzi Vert's debut album. He just kind of, I feel like, cut himself short, and he just didn't really embrace his, I guess, more rapper persona. I know he traded in for the Rockstar one, but I'm still not fully convinced of that yet. There's also not much I have to say about XXX Tentacion 17 besides the fact that even though it was his debut album, I really did feel like it was too short. He did say that he wasn't going to make songs like Look at Me on that album, and it was for people who are depressed. So maybe I'm not the best to be critiquing it, but from what I can tell, it is a very heavy album, despite how short it is. But I did enjoy some songs on it, honestly. And I know everyone likes to clown XXX after he got punched on stage, but there really are a couple songs in there that are enjoyable. I just don't think it's a strong project overall. I almost don't even feel like rating it, but I could give it like a 6.5 to a 7. So we did have an eventful day last week on Thursday. There were a lot of artists coming out. Like I said, I did listen to Action Bronson, but not enough yet to get a good taste for it. But from what I heard, I listened to the album. I do think it's just a run-of-the-mill Action Bronson album. But overall, we did get a lot of good music, and we should just be grateful for that. And I just wanted to thank you all for tuning in to another episode of Shameless Plug. I am your host, Xavier Madison. Don't forget, you can always check out the playlists in the description for each episode. They're all, specifically themed for each episode, so try to see if you can get why I put each song in there. If you do have a reason or a hunch, you can always hit me up. Message me at Xavier, that's XAVIEHUR on all platforms, Twitter and Instagram. Don't be afraid to message me on there. I really do appreciate all the feedback that everyone has given me. And if you have a topic that you want me to discuss, don't worry. I will do it. I will get to it. Just let me know. Also, you can hit me up at shamelessplugmedia@gmail.com. That is the email that I use for this podcast. And as always, thank you for listening. Thank you so much for sticking around. If you did enjoy the podcast, don't be afraid to share it with someone. If you didn't enjoy it, still share it with someone. And peace. I love you all. Take it easy and goodbye.